Hello, everyone. That was, thank you, I was inspired. So I'm going to use some slides I haven't used before and talk a little bit about a bigger picture, about our world and what we're doing in Tanzania, Zanzibar. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit about something we came up with this week, which we call augmented collective intelligence. So, big slide. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you, Aleph, and everyone around that to make it happen. It's so cool to see how all these startup cities, they start coming and people can meet each other, and the infrastructure here is awesome. Anyhow, so I like to create technology. I like to call myself nerd engineer. And since the year 2000, we have been building companies and we have been plugging things together, like the plumbers of the internet, if you want. And since about 10 years, we started working on a new wave of companies. And some of that was by coincidence. It's not like we planned all of them in advance. But in a way, you could say we are on a road towards sovereignty. So Florian has been talking about Threefold and then TF9. Basically, they're two sides of the same coin. So Threefold is our company, decentralized. When we started working on it, people said, Christoph, you guys are going to fail. That's too complicated. You make a new operating system, all of that. And we said, okay, how do we test that? We cannot put like so much money to work. How do we get it out there? And that was when not the internet, but blockchain started becoming more popular and deep in before it actually existed. So we used that mechanism to roll it out. And we're very happy with the result. And now we are going to go into the next phase. But we also have a commercial company, which is called TF9. And that's the company which owns the technology, which can do deals with enterprise or government or and so on. Sikana, we've heard about from Florian, so that's an education platform, and that's indeed how we met. So on top of this network, you're going to have that education platform. Two things which I'll talk a little bit more about. So when we went to Zanzibar, and it's a fantastic place, everyone invited, we basically thought about how can we help this country, how can we be here, what can we give to the country. So when we came, we launched the idea of why can't we create a digital free zone? Because bringing millions of people onto the island would be a lot, but bringing millions of people digitally is probably possible. And as a consequence of that, we also got land next to it, and that kind of links to each other. So this is cool because it means that we have tools now, which allows us to communicate with each other, work together, and so on, and then we can link it back to legal, to like the cyber city. This is the president from Zanzibar. What I really like is, they call themselves the revolutionary government of Zanzibar. So when I saw that first time, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. We can work with the revolutionary government. And the president is a very forward-looking person. He really wants to put a lot of effort onto digital and work towards the future. And when we saw that, we moved our team there, we started living there, we started working on these nice things. And that free zone might be a very good thing. Of course, we don't believe that there will be one digital free zone in the world. Maybe there will be more and they will be interconnected. And then together, it can be like very instrumental for network states, for digital nomads, global citizens. There are so many people in the world who are looking for a way how to regulate their life. And if you then combine that to tools, you get a very nice thing. The land is a side effect, and we're very grateful for it. Zanzibar is growing very rapidly. About 4,000 people per month now are entering as new residents to live there. It's a beautiful area. The climate is wonderful, and it got a lot more flights now. So you can go there 3 times per day to Dubai, as an example, where also a lot of new people are coming to live. And so we got that land, and the idea is to create like a regenerative startup city. They called it a cyber city when we got it, but said, okay, that will do. We can call it a cyber city. But actually our dream is, can we together build a city where we invite people to maybe come longer term, shorter time to build the future? Can we, literally on a larger scale, 1 million square meter, can we experiment with how do we work with energy, how do we work with digital tools, how do we work with sovereignty and so on. A little bit like in Roatan, that's of course how we met our friends as well, just in another jurisdiction. There are tax incentives. We're thinking about energy. It would be about 3,000-4,000 homes, so it would be a little bit more dense than the average. And then we would actually already thinking about starting the pre-sale later this year. So this is a kind of a very cool prospect. This is Sicana, we've heard about it, so I can skip that. And this is something, actually in the first Suzalu, which was the event in Montenegro, where a lot of these pop-up cities got started. We met a gentleman, and his name is Michael Smith, and he was working on this thing. And this weird-looking thing, we call it an Earth regenerator. And you know, what is one of the biggest problems of building data centers in emerging countries? It's power. You can do solar, but what do you do at night, right? And do you know that these, I mean, it's crazy how much money there is available to build that kind of infrastructure right now in Africa and Latin America. But the biggest problem is power. How do you power it? And right now, most of that is done with crude oil. If we're lucky, it's done with gas. Sometimes even diesel fuel. We made a calculation for Zanzibar, and we needed between 25 and 30,000 liters per day of fuel for a small data center. I think that's not a good idea, no? So we were really looking at how can we find a solution for that. And then we met this gentleman from the solution, the Earth regenerator, and we said, oh wow, this is like really crazy. Basically, what does it do? It takes bio-waste or biomass. You can grow it, like hemp would be an amazing way how to do it. So you need land though. And you feed that to 4 reactors. And these reactors will create biochar. The biochar and algae, it get mixed and it creates, it's more than an organic fertilizer. It's more like a biostimulant. And you can recover land, because land degradation is a very big problem, as we all know. But the side product of that is electricity. And now this electricity we can feed to one of the containers you saw before, and then that container can give internet and everything else to the people. So now if you think a little bit about that, it's really crazy. You get like, just out of nature, right? This is nothing but nature. You take CO2 out of the sky, you create electricity which goes to a digital system, you create biostimulants, these biostimulants can regenerate land, then you create more land on which you can grow hemp. That hemp again can be given to the next generator, and you can basically start recovering land, giving internet to the people around. So I found this inspiring to talk about because it shows how by nothing but nature and by things which do exist today, you can resolve digital, electricity, biofuel, CO2, and of course you can use your own digital tools to make like carbon credits out of it, put it on a blockchain somewhere, maybe even run the blockchain on this. So this can maybe serve as a little bit of inspiration. Who likes this crazy idea?
Yes.
Good, just to check that you guys are still good. Thank you. We love this. So one of the things we're going to do in the regenerative city and also like in Tanzania is add them to the data centers and then grow them out. So this is super cool. Of course, I mean, the sky is the limit. Now we can start thinking about digital assets as a security so people can co-own them. Or we accept investment from investors and then eventually it's owned by the community around. There's so many beautiful things we can do if we think a little bit out of the box. One of the things which is very important to us is that, look, I think we live in a crazy world, right? Crazy things are happening. And I think it's super important, whatever we do, we need to do it right. We cannot do it the same way as it was before, right? And there are a couple of things which we find very important. And even if we go talk to governments or telecom or even enterprise, we bring that with us. We even have some t-shirts, but I forgot them here, which is like planet first and people first. Those are 2 very simple things, right? But of course they have a lot. How can we do something so we don't damage the planet? Which is sustainability, being regenerative, and so on, the materials we use. And it goes far, if you think about it. And then it's about people first. How can we make sure that whatever we do is not going to harm people onto the planet? So these are like the 2 main things which we put front and center of everything we do in the Venture Creator. But then we also thought about how can we get these Venture Creators to expand? So we want to make like daughter Venture Creators, like we can bring them to other continents, we can together. And one of the very important things to us is open source, but I'm going to talk more about that. What are the tools? How can we make these things happen? I see a lot of like white papers being very complicated, or people almost be like, oh, you know what, if I'm going to make it so complicated, people can't understand me, they will think I'm intelligent, right? Well, I personally think the reverse. I believe if someone is capable to make something complicated simple, that's probably much more intelligent. And there is already so much complexity in the world. The way how we need to use our computers and everything we need to know, and it's complicated. IT by itself is so many layers. We need to go back to the basics. It's just super important. To our engineers, we are saying, if you end up with less code at the end of the month than the beginning of the month, we had a good month, right? Which is kind of counterintuitive for a coding company, right? So we're going to end up having less lines of code at the end of the month at the beginning. Of course, often that doesn't work, but that's the intent. If we can do that, then we know we have been able to simplify. We have been able to throw something out. So simplicity is really important. The other one is authenticity. Do you guys know that today, more than 80% of the content we read on the internet is no longer generated by people, by humans? Wow, that's crazy, right? How do we know what we're reading is authentic? And I think it's really important. I would like to know. It's like, no, instead of hiding on a blockchain somewhere and everything needs, I understand there are situations where people need to hide because they have no choice. I understand that. But for a lot of cases, we should not hide. We should be very open and public, and it should be able for people to see, look, this, and this proof of authenticity is important. Let's talk a little bit about open source. One of the main things I'm talking about wherever I go is open source. I've sold 7 companies, and they were all open source. And many people say, but how can you do that? How can you have something open source? The code, everyone can just take the code. And still you sell a company? That sounds like very weird, isn't it? I can tell you even the reverse. If my companies wouldn't have been open source, I would have lost a couple of them. Like we ended up in a patent lawsuit as an example. And that took 3.5 years. It was really, really horrible. But the fact that we survived was just because we were open source. Because we had prior art, and the code was there, and we could prove that actually this is something we invented, and it protected us. So being open and giving what you have to the others is actually the absolute best way to protect yourself. Because you cannot protect yourself from a big company coming to you and trying to abuse patents against you. There is no way that you as a small company can do anything. But if you do open source, you can. And it has so many benefits. And if anyone is more interested around this topic, I'm very motivated to tell to like venture capital and to startups and say, no, don't be afraid about it. If you do open source, it's really going to pay off in an absolute big way. Another anecdote is, twice in my life, people stole a lot of things. And my investors were like, yeah, Christoph, we have to go back to them. And once was VMware. And they stole so much. And they were like, oh, maybe we need to sue them. And I said, no, why? Are you crazy? The fact that they find it worthy to steal our code and the IDs, that's like the best possible publicity we can ever have, You can't even pay for it. And people who don't want to pay for a piece of code won't do it anyhow, if you make it open source or not. And yes, we were acquired 6 months later. Because someone then picked up and they said, oh, if you guys are going there and they start copying that, clearly you're doing something good, and we got an exit. So it's actually fantastic if they copy your stuff. It's the best thing you can have. Anyhow, that's about open source. Let's talk about something else. This was really funny. This week, trillions of dollars are being spent on what people call AGI. Artificial General Intelligence. You know that, right? Now, we talk about the internet. The internet is the basis of this artificial intelligence. Without internet, without our data, that AI would not be there. You guys agree with that? Now, that internet is kind of broken. We talked about non-authentic information and where does it come from. So we're now feeding an artificial intelligence machine with information which is broken. And that's also why there needs to be a lot of control mechanisms around it. So trillions of dollars are being spent to make us that it's a race for intelligence. How many companies in the world can do that? Very few. So we're going into a future where actually it's an exaggeration of the internet. While the internet got very centralized by very few enterprises and companies and so on, AI is going to be much more. And we will be allowed to use it because obviously they need us as a participant in this system. But that's not what we want. At least not what I want. I don't want to be part of some big AI thing. Look, personally, I'm not afraid about AI. I believe it's one of the best things which could happen to this, just like the internet. I'm much more scared about how are we humans going to use AI, much rather than what AI is going to do to us. As an example, I read in a newspaper this week that the US was putting a lot of money behind putting AI on drones to basically become self-killing machines. I said, wow, that's crazy. You know, AI probably has the reasoning capability of a monkey. So we're going to put monkeys in planes to fly around and kill people? That sounds like a very smart idea. It's crazy, you know? So it's not AI which is dangerous. It's the fact that we are doing that. So what we need, AI is, look, AI is not so intelligent right now. But AI has a really big input-output channel. AI can read very fast. We need to speak, we need to read, and that kind of goes slow. AI doesn't have that problem. It can capture the internet. It has so much information available. And that's why we look at AI not as something to replace us, but we look at AI as something to augment us. And we wrote that down, and then I sent it to a couple of friends, and then someone said to me, hey, wait, there is a term for it. It's called augmented collective intelligence. I said, oh, cool. So this afternoon, Florence said, maybe as part of our world, we can try a couple of these things to you guys. So it would be very nice to get your feedback. So there is a group, and they're talking about it, and they say, look, solving tomorrow's problems with tomorrow's intelligence, but not as a way that we have to be scared, as a way how it augment ourselves. So it's harness the emergent intelligence of large number of people and AI-powered machines connected in a distributed architecture. When I read that, that was not our text. I was like, hey, wow. This is exactly what we're building. Network states, people coming together, technology behind, you know, using AI to expand us, not to like limit us. And I said, wow, this is really what it is about, you know. We need a network of AI machines working for us. So we can put our knowledge into those machines, and then we can together, with the right information, with authentic information, we can probably resolve some problems in the world. So when I saw that, I said, that is really cool. So that's the picture they use. Look, artificial general intelligence, it's machine learning, neural networks, and so on, right? And it's getting scary good. But let's not be mistaken. This is statistics. It's statistics based on lots of information and lots of other algorithms around it to make it more intelligent. But it's not really still, we are still much smarter from a reasoning perspective. But it looks very good though. Now, if you use that and you add human-machine networks, and you add knowledge graphs, and you add abstract reasoning, then we have something which is so much more powerful. Now, I can talk much more about that, but look, to me, personally, there are three types of intelligence. IQ is what we are using all the time, and we're talking IQ here, right? Hard reasoning, logic. But there is emotional intelligence. There is spiritual intelligence. There are other types of intelligence. How much of these intelligences, how much spiritual intelligence is there in AI? How much emotional intelligence is there in AI? Don't you think that we as humans have these other capabilities which are truly unique, which really make us human, right? And that adding that to the AI is just much more valuable than sort of being afraid that we will be replaced. So this is really something we believe in. So as our world, and I hope together with you guys, we want to work together with whoever is interested, we're building this plumbing layer, the layer underneath, where the bottom layer is the compute layer, and that's the result of 30 years, you know, trial of error. How do you do compute better, storage better? How do you build an operating system? And then we build on top of that a quantum-safe storage layer. It's not a quantum storage layer. It's a storage layer which can scale out to millions of machines. It's not by replication. It's more smart, and a quantum computer can not hack it. And then on top of that, a network, and that's the newest one. How can we build a network so we can all communicate it, all from a phone, from a computer, machine to machine, computer to human to machine, in such a way it's end-to-end encrypted. You always link to your private key, and it can look for the shortest path. And that last thing is the most difficult one. Imagine you're in a situation where your line goes down, and it can go over the node of your friend, and it can go over a satellite, and we can together use the capacity from each other's machines. And it's a really difficult problem, that one. So that one we're also working on. Let's test it together and see where it gets. And then we have the AI around that. Now the hero, that's really what it is about. We thought a long time, how do we call this thing? So the internet today is weird, right? You have all of that capacity, the centralized data centers, and then you have these applications which are not ours. And we are a client to those applications, and we exist hundreds of times. What if we create a hero, a digital being which is alive, and that digital being represents us? It's not an algorithm. It's literally something which runs onto this grid, and it represents us, and it has the capability to store that information. Oops, can I go back? Yeah, to store the information in a way it cannot be lost. The information is only mine. We can now use this to talk to our AI, so we can do things like, as an example, Calendly. I'm sure many of you use it. You cannot do Calendly with more than 2 people. At least it's very complicated. Okay, why is that? Imagine we all have a hero. I can just say, hey, we have a group of people, can we get together? And it just figures it out amongst each other, because it knows where you are, who your friends are, your circles are, right? So you give context to all of that. And that's why we see, that's our vision. So we have the lower layer, then we have the heroes on top, where we still have quite some work. We can link it back to the free zone. All these heroes can talk to each other, and they can literally become the back end of our digital life. So this is really about, let's together create an augmented collective intelligence. We do that by an intelligent digital alter ego. We know that it can be done for less than $5. Wouldn't you want to pay $5 if everything you need digitally is in there? Your chat, your files, your storage, your applications, your calendaring, your name it. The way how you deal with wallets, money, and so on. For $5, right? It's using less than 5 watts. It's all possible, and it's not even far away from now. And not to forget, there are still 4 billion people out there who don't have decent access to the internet. So we can kind of leapfrog for them as well. That way we can resolve acute world problems, because we would be much more intelligent together. So if you write a nice paper, that paper would be available to your circles, to other people. And you wouldn't even have to read all of that, because you could just use your AI. Hey, by the way, I'm looking for information, this. Who of my friends, universities, whatever, my circles, can help me to augment what I'm looking for. You guys like that idea? Good. So one of the things the hero does is very simple. It can talk to each other directly. No middleman, no nothing. You can, like a peer-to-peer chat, being very efficient. And then, of course, you can use that for any other thing on top. So you really become the center of your digital life. And you get capabilities. So what are the kind of things you can do? You can chat with your friends. You can create documents, content, music, creativity. Playing is a kind of an important thing, right? You can share that information to everyone you want. You can transact. You can develop. You can discover. But it's a little bit different than what we're used to. So you don't develop for a server somewhere centrally, but you're developed for a hero. And best of all, it's extremely ridiculously green. Because we exist so many times right now, that every time you exist, it's a full-blown data center with so much power loss. It's absolutely crazy. So in this design, we don't have that. Imagine we all would operate this way. You would exist once, your data would exist once, your energy would be much lower. And we're talking orders of magnitude less. And that's, of course, something which is pretty cool. So how does that fit in the evolution of IT or internet? If you look at Web 1 and Web 2 as sort of the centralized data, right? We all know about that. So obviously, it's a little bit outdated. We don't want that. It's using these very power-hungry data centers. It can be expensive. It can be slow. It can be out of your country, and so on. And of course, blockchain was a huge step forward. Very important for how to deal with money, identity, these kind of things. But you cannot use it for everything. You cannot use blockchain to replace the digital life. Forget that. A blockchain is all about sharing information with a lot of people. So you need a concept beyond that. And that's why we believe this Web 4 or Internet 2 or whatever we're going to call it It comes in where we need this AI hybrid model, where basically we can have our data ourselves. And of course, it's not like you will have all three of them, right? It means you still have blockchain, and it needs to be self-healing, because otherwise it can never scale to the level we need it to scale. So we called our network technology mycelium, right? Because it's a little bit like that, where we all connect to each other and we become more intelligent together, and it needs to go everywhere, not centralized in rather unforeseen ways. So mycelium is the network technology which we use behind. So we started this presentation, thanks to Florian, with let's create the magic to build a better world. That's indeed what we believe technology can do. We believe it's an extremely exciting time right now because, yes, it's true, a lot of things are happening which are not cool. But then, on the other hand, there are more opportunities than ever to make a difference with less people than ever. And I think these pop-up cities and you guys coming together is a proof of that. And more than ever, that change is in our own hands. But we need to do it. And I hope we can all stay loyal to the values and make sure that we do it in a proper way. But I personally believe it's an extremely exciting time to be alive. So thank you, everyone.